This episode is brought to you by the legends over at Dog and Gun Coffee, and you can get $10 off your very next order when you use the code Bowhunter. That's all in caps locks, Bowhunter. That will get you $10 off of your next order at Dog and Gun Coffee.
Hey there, and welcome to Becoming a Bowhunter. I'm your host, Maddie, and join me and our guests as we take the quality of meat back into our own hands. Searching the wild for free-ranged animals to harvest as ethically as we can. I interview a variety of specialists from the bow hunting community to help fast-track your journey as a bow hunter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this chinwag on one of your favorite topics in the world, bow hunting.
What is up, you legend? Episode 100. I never thought, I don't know really what the expectations were when I started the podcast. I wasn't sure where it was going to get to, but here we are, 100 episodes deep. And so over 225,000 downloads, over 127 hours of content, which probably means double that in editing and obviously double that in the actual recording times as such. The podcast listeners vary from Australia, United States, New Zealand, Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, Brazil, Denmark, Malaysia. That's like the top countries. And the top 5 episodes that we've ever launched, The Perfect Execution with Grant Rand sits at number 1. Buying the Perfect Bow with Ian Summers is number 2. How to Find the Big Boys During the Roar with Kev Schilf is number 3. Montana Elk in 2022 with James Doomstis is number 4. And then Pig Camp with Matt Williams is actually number 5. So first of all, I just want to say thank you if you've been a listener, if you've shared the podcast, if you've messaged me individually. I really appreciate that. That really makes the podcast continue on. To be honest, at times it is almost stopped. I definitely haven't been as consistent as what I was at one point in time, but I've found something that works well for me now, and I love putting the content out. I really do. I really love talking bow hunting. It kind of gives me an avenue to kind of voice it, right? Because otherwise, my everyday life, I don't really get to talk to that many hunters as such. So it is nice to have a platform where you can kind of go off and talk to people and I guess share the knowledge of bow hunting. And it's pretty crazy to think how far it's come, like from where it was, where I very first started. Very fortunate to have access, but no knowledge whatsoever. And so I was literally just a kid out in the farm, not a kid, an adult out in the farm, man out in the farm trying to figure his way out. And now it's pretty cool to see like things come together reasonably frequently for me, but I mean it doesn't happen every time, and that's just what bow hunting is. So we wouldn't probably enjoy it as much if it did come together so easily every single time. But yeah, pretty much just wanted to say thank you for listening, thank you for being a part of the journey so far. It's definitely not finishing anytime soon, so you get to keep listening to Becoming a Bow Hunter, even though I'm a bow hunter who wants to always learn more. So I think the day that you want to stop learning, the day that you stop having that passion is probably the day that you should put down the bow. And I'm nowhere near that. I'm still just obsessed as what I was when I first picked up the bow. So it still consumes me, and it's still a great passion to have and something that I know I'm a big advocate for. I think everyone should get involved with it if you don't have access. If you're not out and about and if you're not doing those things, like there's always a way. And I've got many ways up my sleeves that you guys can reach out, and I'll let you know of different paid blocks you can go to, because that's definitely one place I've kind of started, was going to paid blocks. Even if that means you can only go every once in a while. There's also the national forest in through New South Wales, or whatever the other state forest in through New South and in through Vic. So if you're willing to drive, there's always that access you can get a hold of as well. And then getting a bow is just figuring out whether you're going to go secondhand or whether you're going to jump on and buy one from a shop. But pretty much it's been a cool experience so far. I've definitely learned a heck of a lot. I've probably forgotten a lot, to be honest. But at the same time, I'm really enjoying this journey as a bow hunter. And I first of all, thank you for everyone who's accepted me into the bow hunting community. But also, thank you to you just for listening to the podcast, showing up week after week. It helps, for instance, having the sponsors on board. Like, they wouldn't be here if there wasn't listeners to start with. But at the same time, within saying that, go across and make sure that you are supporting those businesses, because they're kind of putting their neck out to make the podcast stay alive as well. So yeah, and this is a perfect example of it. The 100th episode, it's not really anything to do with me as such. It was the Dog and Gun Breaky event, and I was there, which is awesome, and we got to record the content, but it's not me talking, it's not me interviewing as such, so something very different compared to what we've ever done before. But the cool thing about it is that it's a piece that Dog and Gun put on for the bow hunting community. And I know putting on an event is never necessarily easy. It can be very stressful, especially when you're opting to cook everyone breakfast and have a have a layout where we all kind of got to sit in this big room and chat. So to get the video right, to get the audio right, to get everything happening is not a small task, and the guys absolutely crushed it. And as a next level to that, what they've actually done is put together the audio for us. And the audio, the questions sometimes are a little faint, but you can generally put together what they're saying, especially with the answers that the boys are giving. On the panel, we've got Mr. Brad Smith himself, we've got Mr. Ian Summers, and Mr. Kev Schilf. So stacked lineup of good dudes who know a lot about bow hunting and are willing to share their knowledge anytime you ask them, which is just absolutely amazing, right? We're very blessed to have those guys in the community, especially when they put together something like this and rock up for something like this, where many questions were asked. There's a lot of talk around the rut, because it was just prior to the rut. I think it was around the 3rd or 4th of March, maybe. So there's a lot of conversation around the rut in general. So a lot of in-depth detail, a lot of stuff I learned about fallow deer in particular, which I'm looking forward to getting out and hunting some fallows, hopefully on the rut next year for that. But in general, it's just a great piece. I think it's awesome. And I want to thank, firstly, the Dog and Gun crew, not only for sponsoring the podcast, but for putting this together, for making the audio so great. So make sure, if you haven't already, head across and check out Dog and Gun, because they are awesome people as a first piece. But then they also make bloody awesome coffee. They make good apparel and good gear in general. And they're just great to watch. Like, if you follow their social media, they're always putting up incredible content. And so that's one piece. And then the next side is making sure that you're going across and following, of course, Brad Smith, you're following Ian Summers, and you're following Kev Schilf, because those guys are always putting up great content as well. So that's about it from me. The intro and outro to this one were kind of cut off. So we've kind of just edited it to make it work. So unfortunately, it doesn't really come into anything. It doesn't go out of anything as such. It's a bit of a hard start and a bit of a hard finish. But with that being said, you've still got 2 hours of great content coming your way. So I'll shut up. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to sit back, relax, and enjoy this one, because I'm going to actually listen to it a second time round as well. But yeah, we'll talk to you soon, legend.
Alright, so as someone who is freshly starting out in bow hunting, where would be the first place to start?
A bow.
Like, how do I narrow it down, the choices?
Thank you. So, as in getting a bow or hunting, or what are you, where are you asking that question? Sort of is pretty open-ended, so.
It's like we don't have access,
Yeah,
we don't know anybody, we're girls as well, so that's intimidating.
It probably is intimidating, but it's also a benefit.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a benefit.
It's a good thing.
Because, like most people, it's feet on the ground and moving around, going to areas, finding out those areas. There is social media. There's a lot of Facebook, and Facebook's a double-edged sword too, because there's a lot of creeps as well and a lot of scammers and stuff like that.
Specific Facebook groups that you recommend for?
Oh, off the top of my head, there's bow hunting ones. There's definite ones, Australian bow hunting and something like that.
They're fairly useful.
There's some good guys on there, you know, and they normally pick you up and put you under your wing, especially if a female comes on board, that they are sort of grabbed in and put under the wing, so you are in the right area and you're not going to get, led down the wrong path sort of scenario. I found bow hunters to be a lot more open with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but you should be able to find, like, approach other chicks on Insta that do a bit of hunting, like if you're searching through there, like, just ask questions or, you know.
It's like social media is probably the best way.
At the moment it is. Like I said, at Insta you're staying, it's nearly face to face a little bit too, you know.
Yeah, it's true.
It's-
That's how I met everybody.
Yeah, well, it's the same. You get DMs all the time about this, that, questions, and, you know, you can point you towards some archery clubs and that, but that's not always the best thing either. Like there's some different people in them too. Well, it can, and we get, you know, a lot of people where if it's a one-on-one or a couple here and there, they cater for people that have only just been bowing a little bit. It's a bit of an adventure too, like it's 3,000 k's away from here, or say 2,000 k's away from here, and you get up there, you do a 6-day hunt with us, and you spend probably a day, maybe up to a day. Or through the week we work on you and your gear, but that first half a day and that we're right into setting you up and your boat.
Yeah.
And as you know, you've been there, so.
Has anybody else done a beginner's Bowhunter course here? Me, Oscar,
Yeah.
anyone else? And Sean?
Yeah, so, you know, we sort of talk you through everything. We're over your shoulder, and depending on how experienced you are, though, we still get experienced people coming up just to make sure it's more a confidence thing for them, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as women goes, like, I don't know, I think you've got to try and reach out on Insta and to someone that's that's taking interest and go from there, and hopefully they can, if they won't help you, they might be able to put you onto someone that can help you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same as all of us. Like if someone asked me, well, I'd sort of push them towards something like that bowhunting course, maybe.
Yeah.
It's a long way away, but you probably do something you never thought you'd do, but it's also most of the people that have done it, like, they wanted to go back and, you know, they've booked in to have a hunt with us again, you know what I mean? Up there. So it wasn't just a one-off thing, which they thought might have happened from the start, if that makes sense, you know?
And you learn everything on that course too, from bow setup to equipment you're using, binos, and then you go into obviously shot execution, broadheads, arrows, and then you go out into why do you hunt this particular way, what are you looking for birds wise, everything. So there's... Yeah. Well, there's one client that we had up there, and he'd been bow hunting for 7 years, and he said in 3 days he's learnt more in 7 years, you know, and that was pretty nice to hear, because you're sort of just doing what you do. Really dumb shit off me as well, you know. So, but yeah, it's definitely it's a good thing, and that's what it is. It's an open book, and similar to what we're doing now. You know, there's too many people out in this industry that sort of try and keep it under their shells a little bit, and you know.
I think it's important to have the confidence to ask on social media. Just because you're female, don't just have the confidence to ask the question. Young Holly reached out and asked me one simple question on Insta and showed that she had a bit of go about her, and now she's invited into the deer camp to show her the ropes. All right, so it's all about putting yourself out there as well. Yep, there's some weirdos out there, of course, but I think in our chosen passion and what we love doing, I think the majority of people are genuine people. So don't be scared to ask.
You can filter too, like especially with Instagram, you can sort of pick up pretty quickly whether someone's in it for something else and not just trying to help you. So that's sort of where Instagram's pretty good too.
Yeah, but you even look at last weekend, like that course at Murphy's, sort of trying to put together the building better bowhunters or whatever.
Yeah.
You got people turn up there. We had 13 people there last weekend. I think there's a father and son, another 2 mates turned up, or 2 lots of mates turned up, and then none of the other people know each other. Few people know each other through social media and stuff like that. And then as that weekend progressed, all the little groups just kept rotating around. People kept talking to different people, and then by the end of the weekend, I dare say there was going to be blokes hunting with other people that they hadn't even known anything before. But it was a good way to make sure you and your gear set up fine, meet other like-minded people. And there was no one there that was sort of, no one, you'd be standoffish or you're thinking, oh, I hope I don't hear from him again. Everyone was there for a reason. Everyone was there for a reason to learn, you know, and they all had that in common. And it was like, honestly, it was one of the best, like, camps that all get-togethers like that I've been to. Yeah, I've had some rough ones, Rach. Yeah, but it was a pretty good, yeah, real good weekend.
Well, now they can all sort of see a hunt with each other.
Yeah, they can. And I think there's going to be more. Brad and I are going to be starting to do a lot more of those sort of weekends here and there. And I think it's just get those people the foot in the door, and make sure, just get that confidence up that your gear you got's right, and you're using it the right way, and you're getting the best out of it. And once you step out in the field, if you know your bow's tuned, the arrows are flying good, you're feeling a little bit confident. Like it's no use walking out that thinking, or drawing back thinking, fuck, I wonder where this is going to go. You got to know, and if you know, or, your unknown is knowing what you're going to come across, what you're going to see, what you're going to run into. Once you find those unknowns, it's up to you to seal the deal. And then if you're confident in your gear and all that sort of stuff. So getting back to that same start a question about where do you start, where do you look? Well, maybe keep an eye out on the Bowhunting coach, and if you want to try and get involved, meet like-minded people, and that's probably as good a place to start as anything nowadays, I think.
Yeah.
It's also just Bruce course out, right? Online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at it, so I can't comment. Sorry. No.
Right, any questions? You guys must have come with questions. Come on.
Yeah, I've got one.
There you go.
I've got a hunt on a property, and I've just found out that there's a few rifle shooters going there a few days before I get there.
Yep.
Am I wasting my time?
No.
Absolutely not.
No. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Next question.
no, you're never wasting time. I think you just got to. Have you been there before?
Yeah, I'm hunting regularly.
So you understand where you need to be. You know where the sign is, because you don't know how they hunt. You don't know if they're going to stick to the roads. You don't know if they're going to walk around the wind up their ass, blowing animals out like that. I've hunted plenty of places. Like I've had to wait for the rifle hunters to get out of there before I can go in. And it's fine. Yeah. Shit might be spooked and they might shoot something good, but there's if it's half any place and there's still a few critters there, and it's the right time of year.
Is it a big block?
It's only a small block,
Yeah.
but it's fairly heavily populated.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that I'm afraid they're going to spook them away.
If it's heavily populated, sorry, brother. I would suggest, and I'm not saying anything against rifle hunters, each to their own, right? Most of us came from that. So, if I would suggest that anything that's easy to get, don't hunt those areas.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because blokes get trigger happy. And if it's easy access, and if they're there to harvest meat, it's usually where they can drive to. You know what I mean? If you push yourself out a little bit further, well, that's where I'd start anyway.
Yeah, right.
I wouldn't be doing where is close to their camp and what's easy to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know the hunters, or is it just?
Yeah, I know the landowner, and
Yeah.
he's one of the rifle
Yeah.
shooters, so he's pretty easy to go to the easy spots.
Yeah, the open fields and little slightly
Fairly
wooded.
fairly hilly country too, so
So go to the biggest hill because they won't be walking it.
yeah.
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
and keep if it's coming into the rut, just use,
Right in the middle.
well, you get up early and just listen. You know what I mean? That's going to
Yeah.
dictate what. Hopefully, you might be able to hear something, or you might be able to start something up.
Yeah.
You know.
Make your own rules, mate. Don't play by theirs.
Yeah, and like I said, just don't just wipe it off. We got to deal with chopper shoots down at our place all the time, or in our country all the time. And if something stirs shit up, that definitely stirs shit up. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's no different if you're in the States, mate. They got to do it on hunting public land. You don't know who's going to be there. You've just got to get out there and give it your best.
Just think outside the box. So open areas near roads aren't going to be your best friend. So the thicker gullies, the steeper gullies, the bigger are the hills. They're the places that you'd be wanting to
They
spend
might
your
have
time.
pushed into
Yeah.
Because if there's a couple of gunshots, they're going to go into the thicker shit.
Because chance is, if you get out there and have a look, or you're sitting at home on your lounge, where the bloke out there having a look's going to have a better chance than the bloke sitting at home on the lounge sulking,
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yep. No, appreciate it.
And if there's rifle shots there, a lot, regularly, then it's not going to, they're used to it as well. The deer are used to it, mate. They're not going to spook at it too far. They might put their head up and trot off into a bit of cover. But if they were already feeding on something they want to feed on, they're going to wait for it to go quiet again. They're going to come back out. Yeah.
All I'd say is your first day in there, just go easy.
Yeah.
Listen, don't try and walk your ass off, cover it all, send it all up again. Like, just give it a rest and go general approach. How long are you going to go for there your first time?
6 days.
Oh,
You go, oi,
Perfect.
you're all the time in the world, mate.
first couple of days, oi, just take it real easy first couple of days. Yeah, listen, if you
Yeah.
can drive and look and glass if you can.
Yeah.
If not, get up early and late and listen. Don't have to be in them hunting areas. Just get to a good vantage point and listen.
And I suppose ask the question if you know the owner. Say, where have you been?
Yeah, what did you shoot?
you've
And
just-
what did you shoot?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll sort of just straight away take those mental notes and say he's been in this paddock, and that paddock, but he's not touching that paddock. Well, that's where your first paddock's going to be. That you're going to have a check on, you know. Yeah.
Maybe say drive.
Yeah.
Is that deer less on the snoop like?
Yeah, I think so, mate. Like I said, it's to me that they might spook at the vehicle, but they'll settle quicker because that's just what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whereas you're tramping through the bush on foot, you sort of
Scenting.
you're putting your scent down one, and you got to get out there, and then you got to get back. So if you walk up and down the same path, you probably only scent that one area. But if you get out there and do a big loop, you know, you're going to put scent everywhere. If you can drive, especially when you're looking for sign, I'd rather drive and keep less scent on ground. You know, look for rub lines, scrape lines, and use either vantage points if you can to glass, late in the arvos, early mornings. All that sort of stuff's going to tell you where the animals are while the animals are moving. It's the same as if you go out west. If you go west looking for, it's flat country out west, so you haven't got your vantage point, so I drive. If I'm hunting pigs, I'm driving water holes, looking for trails going through fences. If I'm hunting crop country, it's those trails going into that crop. Look at where they're heading, look for tree lines in the distance. Just do your recon early, especially if you're there for 6 days. Just ease into it and work out where you need to be. If you're only there for an afternoon or a morning or a day, well, just throw everything I've just told you out in the bucket. just get out there and have a go, you know. But yeah, definitely, like those older animals will pick up on your scent. They'll know because they know in the past that means keep your head down or, you know, just be aware.
Have you ever driven past critters, like on a road? They just stand there and watch you. Yeah? You pull up and get out of your vehicle,
They're gone.
they're gone like last week's paycheck, mate. They just abscond. So, yeah. So there's a lot in it. They're funny critters, right? They just I don't know exactly how they think, but yeah, somebody walking around a paddock and scenting it up is something that's out of the ordinary. But they get to watch vehicles drive past them on a very common basis. So
The amount of pressure they get, that dictates it if you're going to see them again or if they're going to settle down quickly, you know. They don't get, the older the critter, they don't get that old for being stupid either, you know. So they just they cotton on pretty well what's going on. And exactly what Kev said there, like, yeah, if you've seen stuff from the vehicle, yeah, slow down, but just slow down, pick out a spot as best you can, give you a landmark of where he is.
drive past.
Keep going, work out what the wind's doing from the dust in your mirrors and stuff like that. Keep driving till you reckon you can't hear. Like, don't just drive 200 yards up the road, drive a K. Just, you know, it depends on what they're doing. If they're out there feeding, and then see if you can double, if it's worth it or they're worth it.
It also depends on what road you're on too. As long as you're meant to be there.
Don't slam the doors.
Oh, yeah. Leave your door open if you can.
With callers, rattlers, scents, fill up. Whatever in your through your experience, what works and what's the way to come?
The best is the top of a beer can for me. You just crack it open and you bend it. You ever heard that one before? It's calling all deer. Calling all.
Yeah, I just think it's the right. You got to use all that stuff at the right time. If you don't use it at the right time, like rattles work on fallow. If you use it at the right time, they'll even arc up reds. And calls will work for certain deer as long as they're in the right mood. If you know what I mean. Just because you see a buck or a stag, he's got to be in the right mood to do that. When I say in the right mood, he's going to be either rubbing on a tree, working a scrape, and probably solo a lot more of the time. Like if you get a stag or a buck that's got a dozen does with him or a dozen hinds and roaring or grunting, and you expect to try and call him away from them, that ain't going to happen. The only way it will happen is if it's probably early in the rut.
Yeah, now.
Just say you might get a red stag with a dozen hinds. He's got his head down feeding. They're not making no noise, but he's with his hinds. I dare say he's not getting harassed by other stags. You get into a decent position or get close enough and start with even hind calls before you roar at him, just to see what he does. Like we've had him come nearly half a K to a roar at this time of the month, like pre-rut. This is what I call pre-rut, right? Rut's virtually going to start for the Reds around that, roughly around the 20th. They'll be making noise before that, but this is sort of pre-rut at the moment, where they're just splitting up from the bachelor mobs working. Kev's a better bloke to talk about the Reds, but in my experience with the Reds beforehand is we've called plenty of stags away in the next week or two from their hinds because they're not being harassed by other stags. And you know if there's another stag there because he's continually looking in one spot. He's telling you there's another deer over there because he'll be feeding and he'll keep looking. And it won't be just him, there'll be other deer. And if they're keeping looking one way, there's other deer there. So, in my experience, look, you can call him away because they'll come and try and, if he's a good fella, most of the time he'll come to you to try and prevent you from going anywhere near his girls at this time of year.
This is where they're going to be moving the most from, like what Brad's saying, because they're trying to get more girls. So the first thing you try and do is do a hind call, or a doe call, because what are they trying to do? Get their harem up now before the other ones come in. So that's going to be, so you start roaring, what's that going to do? I want to have a punch on. They're not going to be interested in that at the moment. They're interested in the other part of what they do at this time of the year. So that's when you start doing, it's all sort of trying to work out, you go to the pub. At the start of the night, you want to go and try and talk to the girls, and at the end of the night, you want to punch on with everyone.
Yeah.
So what are we doing right now? We've just walked into the pub. Yeah. All right, so you want to try and get all the girls.
But I'd always start with hind calls or doe calls, and then if you don't get a response, like I said, but this time of year, you with a roar, we'll drag them away, or a grunt might drag them away because I'll try and prevent that buck or stag encroaching on there.
It's logical thinking, guys. These animals have not had a shag for 11 fucking months, right? The last 3 months they've been building up their testosterone to bully up, to put all their muscle on, to get ready for 4 weeks of fighting and mating. That's it, right? So at the moment, they're on their march, they're finding their girls. They're not mating yet. Those girls have got to come into estrus. If you can hind call a stag right now, he's going to think that you're just another girl and he's going to come and collect you up and bring you back into his harem. Okay? I think it's a load of horse shit, to be very honest with you. Anybody who wants to put any sort of animal urine on themselves for whatever reason needs their head checked, you just use your wind. You keep an eye on your wind, your thermals, be aware of what time of the day it is because they will turn on you. If you're in a position where you're moving in on an animal and it's getting to a certain time of the day where the sun gets to a certain point and it heats it up, hot air rises, right? So you might have that wind in your face, that whole approach to the animal, and you might be getting just to within bow distance of him. And then it turns around and comes fair up your ass. It's all over.
The sense, I reckon the only time the scent will help you out is if you put it in a certain spot, right, and you're calling, and it might attract that deer in to stop him. He might stop, get a whiff of it, and all of a sudden change his course and might prop him for you to actually get a chance to draw and shoot, if you know what I mean. Because when you call a lot of critters in, they'll beeline it towards you. They know exactly where you are. I don't know how that.
It's amazing.
It's just their ears. Like it won't be just. They won't get it within like 10 or 12 yards. They'll pinpoint or know exactly where you are. So if you can call, I like calling and moving if I can, or if I've got another bloke with me and I'm calling, I've got him out in front of me off to the side, depending on what the wind's doing. So you can sort of triangulate the whole situation. Deer's there, I'm here, calling. I'll put the hunter in front of me, off to one side. So.
And the reason for that is so the hunter's going to get a broadside shot.
Get a better angle on that critter. You're not dealt with it. Depending on the situation. Yeah, depends if it's...
That's if you're roaring,
Yeah.
anything like that.
Or your
Yeah.
mouth.
Or roaring or grunting, use a tube. If you can't get a bull on like that, get a decent bit of poly or rib tube, you know.
3-inch polypipe will work.
Yeah.
Very similar. Piece of vacuum cleaner pipe. Same deal. Yeah. That's
Coming back to that, you're calling by yourself sort of piece, you got something coming pretty hard. Just thoughts on the frontal shots?
Close. If your frontal shots, I'd rather keep them close.
yeah.
I would.
I love them. I love frontal shots. Shit dies really quick.
They're lethal as shit, mate. If we can, Reese, if it's me to your way. If something's alert and it's here to the fence away out there,
Are you stopping them if they're coming straight at you?
I'm drawing once they're within 20.
Yeah.
And I'm not making a noise. I'll just let them come and I will pull them up if once they're from me to you. I'll let them get as close as they can. I've got a better chance of hitting them then.
And the only time you probably want to call them is so you got a clear path, and that's when you want them to stop,
Yeah.
because they're going to be they're still looking for past you. Hopefully, if everything's going well, and then you might have a shooting lane where you need to pull them up in that shooting lane to get that shot. That's the only reason. Because if it's same as fox whistling and all that, like if they're still coming in, they're still searching. If you're at full draw, you just wait until they come up, and you see it on all the videos. Oi, oi, and then they look up and go, "Oh, that's not good." You know. Yeah. So that's if they're coming, you don't need to keep calling.
The biggest thing if you are calling like that is when they're coming in, just stay tight-lipped. Don't keep calling if they're coming. Let them come and search.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have a good backdrop behind me or missing ground, so they've got to come towards you. It's no use you calling on an open face where they can sit back 100 yards and look and think,
That's not a deer.
I can't fucking see anything. I ain't going. Like, the big fellas won't come over there, you know what I mean? Them up. But if you've got missing ground behind you in the way of a drop off of a hillside or a gully, or even if it's a big fallen tree and a stand of timber behind you, that they've actually, because their eyes are only, red deer's eyes are this high for ground. If you're calling in shit or fallow, their eyes are this high for ground. They can't see, like, they've got to, if you get down to their height, they've got to come a long way to see, especially on that sort of country. But if it's dished up on a big open bench and there's scattered timber there, they're going to want to see what they're hearing, you know. So be aware of what's behind you, where you're calling from. Setup's the biggest key if you're going to call shit.
Absolutely.
If you want to learn what not to do, watch a couple of elk series on YouTube.
What not to do?
Yeah. Where they set up is like, oh, I don't know why you were setting up there. Like, make sure I'd rather have something in front of me so I can draw back behind, like I can draw back behind a tree, and he's either going to, you'll work out if he's going to come that side, this side. And if we've got a thick stand of like bush behind me or a fallen tree that I'm in amongst, I know he's not going to walk through that, so he might come up and think, oh, must be behind it, and all of a sudden next minute he starts turning, there's your angle, he's going to start giving you that angle, you know. And if you've got something in front of you where you can draw back undetected, well, you're 2 steps ahead. And if you can be 2 steps ahead on everything you do in the hunting side of things, well...
And especially up here in the Brisbane Valley, you got the lantana bushes and stuff, and there's like just scattered
So
ones.
good.
And you can just there's so many different ways you can just set up exactly like Brad said. Like, you've got a lantana bush that he's going to come down this track or that track. That's your time to draw. He's going to come around and then he's going to go either that way or that way. It's so much easier up here.
If you can use game trails, that sort of shows
100%.
you where they're coming. Like, in your head, and they won't always use them, but it's a starting point. Like, you can sort of picture if he comes across that way, I've got this shot. If he comes up through, I've got to wait for him to get around there, I'll draw then. If he goes down that gully on my way to him and he's got to come up, I'm going to draw when I can't see his eyes anymore. If you can see their eyes on anything you're doing, whether it's stalking, calling in, you shouldn't be moving. You know what I mean?
Another thing with your calling too, don't ever call while they're standing still and looking in your direction. Don't ever do that. Call while they're moving, while they're distracted. Like, they'll turn around and they'll look straight at you. They won't be able to pinpoint you. But if you call while they're looking in your direction, their ears, they pull forward, right? And they will pick you up. They'll even pick you up blinking after a call. They are that switched on.
Just make sure when you call, you're not stuck in the middle of a
Open.
somewhere. I've been guilty.
Set yourself up for success. Don't set yourself up for failure. You do it out in the open, shit's not going to go well. You might jag it, but more often than not, it's going to end in disaster.
What do you do to cover your scent before and during a hunt?
It's just, I pay attention.
Wind.
Wind, mate, that's all I pay. And just think about where you've walked. Honestly, it's...
If you hunt with me in the Cape, if you stink, I'm going to deodorise you with deodorant because, like, your winds in your face or up that. I don't want you stinking near me. So it doesn't matter.
I don't think you can mask it, mate, unless you're covering your breath, all that sort of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter what you know. No, I think the blokes in the States try and do it because they only hunt, they're going from point A to point B and sitting in the stand. They're trying to minimalise that
Smell. Yeah.
that smell, whereas us Aussie hunters, we sort of cover a bit more ground and we're a bit more active. So,
And that's where when you're saying before about the scents and all that, some of those guys are only hunting on an acre block, so they've got to be super careful on what they do and don't do, and that's why they have the gum boots on or they have the scent blocker clothes and all that, because they might want to hunt that for a couple of weeks because they don't hunt very often there. So, like Brad's saying with us in Australia, like if that area's not the go, like the wind's the wrong direction, we just go somewhere else. That's not a problem. So that's why it's not as crucial.
well, like Adrian, like the block you said, what did you say? It's not the biggest block, but it's 1,000 acres or
200 acres.
200 acres. Yeah, well, so you don't want to be pushing them out of there. You can't. It could take them 2 days to come back in there. So you've got to hunt it smart, like edge your way into it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take much to get across the neighbours.
No,
No.
not at all.
200 acres is small for rifle hunters to be on, right?
Yeah. But if it's like, if there's deer,
Hilly country.
yeah.
Once you send up an area, how long will you leave it? Like, if you know it's a good paddock.
I've heard 6 hours of UV light pulls scent out of grass like human scent.
Yeah, right.
But I've got nothing to substantiate that. But I've seen deer walk straight over where I've walked, 10 minutes after I've walked over it, and they put their nose down and smell, and then they just keep going. It doesn't bother them. Yeah. But I've seen deer walk over where I've walked 2 hours before, and they hit it, and they turn inside out and gone. It's weird. I don't know.
Depends on, like I said, pressure and how pressured they're being. Like I've seen exactly what Kev said. We see it up north all the time. You see some deer run across, hit you, as soon as they hit your scent, they'll spring, but they'll keep going, and then the other deer hit it. I keep going. What? I think I'll bug this and just put that down and bolt. But in saying scent out west, I've walked around a dam years ago. I can still remember this plain as day. Walked around the dam to have a look at pig sign, pig tracks, everything. Oh, yeah, it's all good. And I could see the wall. The crazy thing was I could see wallers there, right? And I could see the discoloration of water, so I knew it was getting used. Yeah, I still walked around it. And then I sort of...
That old chestnut.
Yeah, that was in the morning. You know, got to this place and sort of worked it out. Then went back and I set up a tree stand on this thing. And I had 2 boars come in there that night, and they come in, as soon as they hit the water's edge, they bolted, and the wind was good. And they'd have been out west all day. Either my feet were really rank. And they like, I don't know, but until this day, I won't walk around water. I'll use my binoculars. If I'm in a vehicle, I'll drive around the bastard. I'll sort of look, if I'm out west looking. And as far as deer goes in the hills, I've seen blokes use, there was a bloke I had with me a few years back now, and he was powder, and Harry's had the same experience, I think, with blokes using talcum powder, right?
The smelly one.
Right, and it's like big, goes out there and heaps sits on the ground, and I thought, we'll hunt a place in the hills, and fuck, we walked through the Yesty and we're watching these deer walk down, that's where we were Yesty, showing the boys and that, and bang, they all balked at it. I thought, our scent's, no, I thought our scent's still there, right?
Talcum powder, yeah.
And then, I think it was 2 days later, I went down there and seen more deer balked, and I thought, they're still balking at our scent, eh? And then went down there and we crossed there later that afternoon, and here's this big wafter powder that old mate shot out out of his talcum powder bottle like 3 days ago. It wasn't our scent they were balking at, it was about talcum powder. So if you're using a wind detector out there, either use ash that's natural, like real fine ash out of a fire, because it'll have no smell at all, or use builder's chalk. There's one. Some blokes use flour, but if you get it wet, it's just like clay glue, mate. You might be able to stick...
Make a pancake.
Yeah. Paper mache a balloon or something if you got something like that, but I don't know.
Do you actually just take it out of the fire sometimes?
Yeah, just, you know, the real fine, some wood burns down real fine.
Could even put some in mortar and pestle, or even grind it up a bit more.
Yeah.
Any of you guys got a smoker, you know, the hopper and a smoker, scoop that out and crush it up and put it in? Sweet.
Because it's probably like more natural smells about it than talcum powder. You know what I mean? So,
smoking the bottle is probably my favourite
Yep.
out of
Yeah.
all of them. Like, you can just slowly
Whiskey.
squeeze and it just does a nice little ones. But you see it all the time, especially with like us up in the Cape for a couple of months every day doing it. You did what these guys do, you'd be out of smoking a bottle in 3 days, you know what I mean? But with that stuff, you can just squeeze and you just see and you're going, yeah, rightio. And like Smithy just walks past and grabs trees, like paper bark, and crushes that up, and you see him just flicking it like that. It's the same scenario.
I get depressed using wind puffers.
He hates
It
it.
depresses me. It's no, it's no good. I just rather, after a while, you get to sort of feel that breeze blowing here or there, but it's sort of, yeah, they depress me. And like I said, I'm probably not doing no favours. Like Ian says, I'll grab that paper bark all the time, but in saying that, I've got a sweaty hand and crushing it off there. I'm probably leaving more sand on the ground using it. But we're not hunting the same country up there day in, day out. We're continually changing up there.
Yeah, 608,000 acres, so yeah.
We try and give everything a rest up there.
Yeah.
If you've got a red stag and it's sort of staying like lakes roaring, how are you telling if it's like just over the gully or if it's 2 gullies over or even further? Because obviously with direction with where they're facing, it can be like as a new hunter, it can be quite hard to tell how far away that thing is.
It's still hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
You're a prick, by the way, because you know the answer to this.
Like you picked it out, and I'm just like, what the hell? And you'll just be like, he's just there. Like to me, sometimes it sounds like he's
yeah.
3 gullies away. Like, how are you doing that? Like, is that just experience? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, they throw their voice, right? So you can have a stag and like from here to where the targets are out the front there or were, and he can turn his head away from you and he'll sound like he's 3 gullies away, right? But that's just him telling the deer in that direction where he is, right? But when he turns and roars at you, he sounds like he's sitting right beside you, right? But he's still only that distance away. I suppose it all just comes down to experience and where you are. Gullies, like you get into some of these hill systems, it's like a cathedral, right? And that sound just reverberates off the hills and off the trees, and it sounds loud and they sound close. But then when you get to that gully, you're like, fuck, he's not here. You go to the next one. It's not there. Go to the next one. No, not there. Go into the next one. Then you'll find him.
You can sometimes hear them for kilometres away.
Yeah.
And they don't even sound that far away. It's just.
It's a lot like sound travels in a straight line, like doesn't.
And the time of the
Travels
day
like
too.
that.
Like first thing in the morning when the air's denser, it's going to cast longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So yeah, it all depends on where they are standing too. Like if they're in the head of a gully and there's a hill between you, they actually sound like they're in the head of that gully. But if they were up a little bit in the direct line to you, right, there's nothing to incumbent that noise. It sounds like they're right bloody there. So.
And if you've been hunting on that particular property, you'll know where water supplies is, you'll know where game trials are, you'll know what gully's got rubs on it and all that sort of stuff too. So that gives you an indication that you already know the deer are frequenting that gully. You're hearing a roar from that gully and you're going, he's either going to be in this spot or he's going to be in that spot. That will also indicate saying, okay, well, the wind's doing this. I'm going to go up on this ridge, come back down there, and then sure enough, you'll probably visualise him.
Yeah, well, Ian just said that word frequent. It's where you see a lot of, like, I know I've most of my best experiences, like you sort of rely on those areas where you see those deer a lot. It's, you know, they'll respond to calls there a lot better than just certain little gullies here and there. You think, oh, I think he's in there, but normally if he's in there, he's going to work his way up A or B.
Yeah.
You know, and doesn't mean just because they're in there you can go in there. Like you got to ease your way in there. And there's some gullies where I hunt, we can't. I can't access them without spooking them because the wind does its sort of thing. So sometimes if you can't see them, honestly, I don't like going in there until I can see them, until I know what's going on. And then if you can't see them, think about, well, I've seen them up on that ridge there, I've seen them there, there's a good bench up there. Keep all that in mind, you know. Like, but you see, like those ones you're saying, they're roaring away from you. You're trying to make ground real quick. Next one they turn around and roar at you, and it's like, holy Jesus, I've got that wrong, you know. But you still get it wrong. King of fuck ups right here, mate. Thinking something's always too far away, or sometimes it's a lot closer than what it seems, you know.
So if you're looking for a deer, will you roar?
To locate, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So if you hear nothing, you just walk along and roaring? Like how often would you, like what frequency would you do?
Pin-
Like once every minute or so?
no. Just depends on where.
Depends on what's happening.
Yeah.
Um,
If it's just say there's crickets,
Yeah.
get into a spot where you can roar and have a listen in here. And
where you can traject your voice out all different directions. Anywhere where you think there may be deer or they should be roaring, where you've heard them roar before, get into that position and just start letting out a roar every minute and a half, 2 minutes.
But not at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day. It's early in the morning, late in the evening. That's when you're going to fire them up. You know, like during the middle of the day, it's like you think about it, the playground's in the morning, first thing in the light, they're going to be the most active. The temperature is the coldest, so their nuts are the tightest and they want to work. And then they're going to be doing all that. And then by the sun comes up, 8:30, 9 o'clock, they're going to put the girls to bed. They're going to be really tired because they've been running around like an idiot. They're going to look for water or a wallow. And that's when you can go and find them. So that's if you're not hearing too much and you know there's water or a wallow around, I'd be going over and looking down on them, not walking up to the water like what Brad just said and going, oh, yeah, he's been here. You've just stuffed it. You know, like binos are your king at this time of the year. And then they're going to come there, same as the fallow. They're going to be going around to their scrapes and redoing their scrapes up.
Yeah, don't go and walk in amongst scrapes if you're hunting the fallow.
Yeah.
They'll stuff you right up.
Because once they've sort of done that sort of whole rutting activity in the morning and the afternoon, they're obviously going to have a snooze if they can, or they're going to just re-scent their area to say that I'm the boss still in this area. So that's when you sort of, just because you're not hearing them doesn't mean they're not in the area.
So a wallow's going to work better in the afternoon.
Well, we've seen them at like 10:30, like coming back. And,
I like the mornings.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yourself?
yeah, because like that's when I've seen them most with Kev being out there is like they've shut shop at 9, you know, around there, and you're going rightio, and then next minute you hear one where he's traversing, he's got his girls in the real thick cover, and he's still roaring as he's going, and you go, where's he going? And then Kev will go, there's a wallow over here, so we just go smoke bomb it straight to there, and there he is, he's sitting in the wallow roaring and stuff like that, giving himself his little bath, and you know, it's another play you can do.
Water plays, I still reckon it plays a huge role at the moment while it's still hot. Like, even afternoons on dams, when it's hot, if they've had a hot day, like dams rule, or springs or whatever you can, like that just... Because I think them roaring out, this is why you hear, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you hear a lot more action overnight, early morning, late over when it's a bit cooler. I reckon when they're croaking or roaring, or I reckon they're blood, look, it really heats them up. You know what I mean? They've got to be in them hot days, you'll hear still your roars out of a steep, cool gully more than what you will out of
Absolutely.
like an open hillside with a lot of sun in it. You know, and you just, it's like people think, oh, the rut hasn't kicked in yet. Well, it might be hot days. The rut's still going. They're still day cycling. Them calling out and roaring and grunting all the time, just, I reckon, it doesn't boil their blood, but I reckon
It physically exhausts them.
Yeah, heats them up.
It absolutely does. And with the wallowing, in my experience, reds don't wallow to cool down. They wallow as part of that rut. They get in there and it helps them lay their scent on trees as they walk through it. I've watched stags cool off swimming in creeks and in dams. That's how they cool off.
Swimming.
Yeah. And then they'll get out and they will just go and lay in the shade and they're cool as a cucumber until the evening time, right? Deer o'clock, 3:30, they'll get up and start moving around. But with a wallow, if you watch a stag approach a wallow, he will roar his ring out all the way to that wallow and he will roar while he's wallowing. He will get out of the wallow and he will roar, and that's usually the last roar you'll hear from him for a while after he gets out of his wallow. And then he'll walk in amongst the trees and rub his neck on them, his glands. He'll use his preorbital glands on the sticks and that. You ever seen a stag walk up to a stick and it looks like he's poking himself in the eye? He's just putting the wax out of his preorbital gland on the stick, leaving his scent behind. It stays there because it's like weatherproof. It's wax.
When you're caping it, you'll see it. When you put your knife around there, you just open it up and then
A big wad of wax falls out.
dare to put up your snort.
Real hunters eat it.
Yeah. First stag, it's part of the...
I'm still not a real hunter.
Yes.
Pretty rank. But as far as your calling question, mate, yeah, even before you go to bed at night, let out a few roars if you're camping near near their area. Give yourself an idea of if they're going to answer. Give yourself an idea because they feel safe at night, right? And they will just sound off. And it's nice and cool normally. And they'll call back to you, especially if you're not in a threatening, like you're not close. They'll just call back. But in the mornings, if they've gone quiet for whatever reason, like Smithy said, just get yourself in a good position, let out a few roars. I wouldn't stay in one spot and roar any more than 10 times. Move to another spot.
Yeah, let's just go from the head of a gully to the head of a gully if you sort of can do that, you know. That way you're only talking to those ones.
And if a roar's not working, mate, don't be scared to get hold of whatever you're using to roar and let a loud hind call and some fawn calls through, like there's hind and fawn looking for each other. That'll start them up if there's one that can hear you.
Have you found with roaring, like, how many real old stags have you called in roaring all the way?
None.
I've been pretty much the same. Like, I'm not sure. I'll try and hind call them, just muck around. Like, we've seen young ones in the past and thought, oh, is he hanging off the outer edge? I can see a spiker laying there. So I'll just give a hind call thinking he's just laying off a stag and some other hinds. And he won't pay one attention to me. And I'm thinking, I won't hear nothing from the other stag and the ones that I'm hoping's there. And next minute I'll roar just to see what happens, and that stag will get up, turn around, roar at me and walk straight at me. And I'm thinking, either he doesn't know what it's for yet, or it's, you know, he's missing the bachelor of the boys. I don't know. A lot of young ones come in. Paul Woods is the only bloke that I know. Humphrey shot a real big fella years ago. And Woodsy just stayed roaring this fella all the way, and he just it was late morning. Yeah. He came all the way up and was roaring all the way into him. He was a big old fella.
Yeah, right.
330 point. Like, proper deer. Yeah. That's the only one that I know of that's sort of... But obviously there's more out there that I don't know of, but my experience roaring... What about you, Harry? You roared any real old ones in? You still awake?
I don't really roar very much.
Yeah. Just to locate.
I don't roar locate.
Yeah, I've heard your roars. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
I just find that's less intrusive. I
Yep.
don't locate, especially in thick country. I'd rather
Yeah. See, Harry doesn't like... There's a good point. He doesn't like letting anything know he's there. He's that more quiet. That's a quiet sort of, you know, a bit more patient.
If you're hind calling, how often are you doing that?
Not too often. Because they will call, like deer will call all day long, but not usually. They only call for a reason, right? So a hind will call for its young when it's missing, like if it's looking for its young, or they just communicate amongst themselves. And even then it's more like murmurs than a call. It's really soft and subtle. If you sit and watch them and you've got the wind right and everything, and you've got the opportunity to just watch a herd of deer, just sit and watch and listen. I think a lot of guys fall into the trap of getting out these things and roaring because it makes them feel good that a stag roars back and they go, oh, I got him to roar. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
Yeah.
He's going to do that anyway.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But if he roars if you roar him and he roars, it should just be a tool for you. Yep, I know where he is. Oh, there's one over there. The wind's doing this. I'm going to go and have a look at him first. I'm going to go down there, go and have a look at him. That's all it does. Harry's got a very valid point. If nothing knows that you're there, you've got one up, right? But sometimes they're difficult to find. So you need to know where they are, and you need to know, or there's multiple stags, and you need to be able to work out what your approach is going to be. And if they're going to sound off and let you know where they are, they're another one up for you. But that doesn't mean that you walk along and keep roaring just because you want to hear them roar and it's exciting. Yeah, it is exciting. I love it too. I like stuffing around with them. I'm in no hurry to shoot a deer anymore these days. So I'll fool around with them and try all sorts of different things. But when I've got somebody else with me, take that a bit more seriously. You know what I mean? So you do whatever you can to get the upper hand.
And sorry.
You're right.
Yeah, and if they respond straight away, that's just saying that they're listening to where you are, and that's if you start doing the hind call and that, and bringing them out of shit country into where you want to have the advantage. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, oh yeah, they're there and I'm just going to keep calling because you're sort of losing your little chess game there.
Yeah. And how accurate do you need to be with the call? Because I'm pretty sure that I sound like someone's strangling a cat.
What, with the hind call? Really? Strangling a cat? Has anybody else strangled a cat? I want to hear that shit.
I don't reckon you got to be that good, mate, at it. You know what I mean? You just got to sound something like it.
It's a very, very simple process, right? It's sort of like if you're gonna write it, it's like MHA, but they're very nasal. They've got a long snout, and when you watch them call, you'll see the back of their nostrils sort of closes off. So you do the same thing and close that. Done. Pretty easy. Yeah.
But you don't always have to. Once you've learned the art, you don't have to.
You don't have to do that. You learn how to close off your nasal passages yourself. So.
And it helps if you mix it up a bit so you're not the same
Yeah.
stubborn bitch on the hill. Yeah.
And same as the roars too. Don't
Change it up.
Yeah, some of the roars I've done and laughing halfway through because it sounds like, like a cat getting
He thinks he's laughing.
Yeah.
You should see us.
Yeah.
We're behind him all holding each other.
Yeah. And then next minute one roars and you go, yeah, such. So it doesn't have to be perfect. But this time of the year, when you're driving down there, I've already got some funny looks. That's in the car all the time, and you're at the traffic lights, and you're doing it. You turn around, and someone's like,
the windows down. Forgot the windows down.
"My bad."
Yeah. If you want to do a fawn call, it's the same sound. Just squeeze your nuts really tight before you do it, because it's more high pitched.
Or tweak your nipples.
Or both.
But don't be aggressive if you're trying to roar. Still don't try and be too aggressive unless you're really close and you need to get him fired up to come at you. You're hoping to drag him through his hinds. Then again, that'd be my last case scenario. I haven't had to do it yet, but I know people talk about it with elk. Everything you watch people do with elk in the States, you can do with red deer here. You virtually just got to speak different language, if that makes sense. Like their cows, they sound different to our hinds, but if you call, they bugle, we roar. They call their hinds, they call their cows, we hind call. Virtually use the same manner and hunt them the same ways. You just got to use that different language, if that makes sense. But they're very, very similar animals.
I haven't got close and watch them all just get up and bowl.
Yeah. Because you've probably done it at the wrong time. You haven't been listening or seeing what the gameplay was.
Or you sounded too aggressive.
Yeah.
Bruce.
And so he's just gone, you're a bigger stag, I've got to get the hell out of here, Yeah. And the same thing too is you think about it when you go into a fight, you do push-ups, you do the sparring and all that stuff, the same as a big stag will come out and a buck, they'll come down and as they're coming down, they're working themselves up, they'll start rubbing trees and that. You can do that. If one's stuck in the heavy stuff, you grab a stick or if you've got a cast antler or something, start whacking that, but don't obviously do it out in the open. Do it so you're but they'll see the tree moving and they'll go, righty, I want to come over to you. And that sometimes can fire them up that little bit to say, he's just there, I want to come out. So
that's another point for locating your stag too. If he's stuck in the head of a gully and he's roaring, but he's not coming out, right? You just look at the treetops of the suckers and sure as shit, you're going to see one doing this. And that's when they're roaring and they're worked up and they're in a sort of like a rut frenzy. They'll just walk up to a tree and just start smashing the shit out of it just because they're frustrated. So never stop looking at other signs, not just for a deer. Yeah.
Another thing I was thinking, Kev, is when they're in splice and wants to already always put them in the open shoulder to make it sound like he's going to
So they don't pinpoint him as much, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's still trying to locate him as in place. So he'll throw it over his shoulder to get them to sound off, but he doesn't sound.
same as hind calls.
Yeah,
And
same
all that,
hind calls,
turn your head, going like
Or
that.
cup it so you sort of throwing it one way, turn your head so you point it that way.
Because you think about it, how an animal feeds. They don't just feed in one direction. They've got their heads moving like that. They're browsing. They're doing that when they're calling. They're going to be calling that way, that way, that way. So you got to try and emulate that.
There's another reason I throw the sound behind me, and that's when a stag goes quiet and I really need to try and find where he is so we can work out how to get to him. If I roar back like I'm throwing my voice like I'm walking away, like I can't be bothered, like I am not coming now, they will fire up and go, yeah,
Face your
fucking told you so. You stay away. They'll just do it. It's just one of those things. This is a strategic game of chess with these critters. It really is. You got to try and think how to make them give up their position and drop their defences enough or outsmart them enough to have your opportunity.
And when it all comes together, it's sweet as.
But some of them are like fallow are real vocal, doesn't matter how. Big fallow are vocal, but you might find a big old red stag, you hear jack out of him. He'll have his hinds in a gully and you'll have to be really close to actually or concentrating to hear him roar. Yeah. And it won't be it's only a roar just talking to his girls. Yeah. Not trying to attract anything else. He's happy.
He's got his girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'll probably be bedded and just let out a moan. And that's it. And you'll hear it and you'll go, the fuck was that?
Yeah. And he won't do it often. It'll be like, and that's when you've got to go slow things down, glass heaps and slowly work your way into where, if the wind allows you, to where you think he is, you know what I mean? So
we were on a stag last year, and he was moving like hell, wasn't he? This is the one in the wallow.
Yeah.
And he roared and roared and roared and roared, but he was roaring and moving so quickly we just couldn't keep up with him. And we got a bit of a view at his tops through the treetops at one stage, and we put a couple of stalks in on him and really thick stuff. Like, I mean, it was, it was thicker than it was thicker than 70s bush. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was, and he ended up moving out with his hind, and he came around, and this was late in the morning, 10:30, and he actually went to his wallow with the girl, and then he shut down, basically, at that point. So they're always different. They just don't stop. And that didn't matter how much I hind called or what sort of trick I tried to get him in with, it wasn't working. But he wasn't spooked. He's just holding tight. Yeah. And he was a dominant stag in that area. And he didn't really give a shit about anything else. He had his girl, that was an estrus. That's all he needed. And that was it.
He ain't gonna.
No.
He ain't gonna leave or budge. No. The only time he's gonna get up if he thinks another stag's coming close to collecting. He'll be onto that too. He'll hear that.
Yeah, well, I tried that. Yeah. Then he pissed off.
Yeah.
So
didn't just hear.
But the next day we were back in that gully and he was just over the next ridge, so he was still in that area, but he had another girl. Yeah. You know?
Whereas if a fellow's got a day to ground and she's cycling, he's just gloating. He's on over the top of her, and he's just grunting his head off 24/7. Like fallow are the most vocal deer out there. They just don't stop. And the only time they do stop is if that, and that's probably a good thing if you're chasing one that's got a day to ground and he's grunting, you got two chances to call him away. But if you follow him up a hill and you pass a couple of scrapes that he's visited on the way while he's with her, keep that in mind and let him go quiet. And then a lot of times you will actually be able to call him back to one of his scrapes. Only once he's quiet, but if he's grunting up there and he's still over the top of her and she's still cycling, you got two chances of dragging him away. So unless you can close in and sneak on him while he's doing that, you're fine. But sometimes it's just they're in that thick bush. She'll even go to try and lay under a log, so because she's had enough, and he'll be there pouring at her trying to get her up on her feet, and he'll be grunting the whole way. Yeah, won't shut up.
They're cool critters. I haven't hunted fallow a lot. I haven't spent a lot of time on them, but the time that I have spent on them, and it comes back to you walking around the dam, their scrapes are their life. And they will do that round of their scrapes and come around and freshen them up. They actually smell the scrape to see if there's a girl that's in season that has visited his scrape. They'll smell the ground and then he'll freshen up with urine and semen or whatever he's spraying all over the joint.
Whatever comes out of him.
Yeah. And scent up the tree that it's on with his neck and all the rest of it, and then he'll move to the next one. And it's a cycle. But don't ever walk into that series of scrapes. Stay outside of it. You can get near a scrape and make some little like doe calls, which is how I got my first opportunity at a fallow buck. They'll come running because they know where he knows exactly where his scrape is. He hears a girl at it. He's on his way if he can hear you.
And
Or if he's not busy with another girl.
it's interesting too with all my sort of ones with the fallow is their scrapes can be as big as a football oval, or it can be double a football oval, and I'll have 5 or 6 of them in there, and there'll be one of them that will be crossing over with another one. It's a huge one, and that's like a big meeting point for it, and the most dominant one will be doing it. But it's like an hour and a half. They'll come around and they'll check everything while it's full on with that rut. So if you're not having much luck and they're over there, the wind shit and that, don't go and scent it up. Just come back to the one that is in the wind, favourable for you, and just be patient and sit off at 15, 20 yards, wind in your face, and just sit there. They will come at some point in that day and they'll refreshen that up, and that could be the opportunity instead of you going, oh, they're over there, I'm going to run down there and scent everything up and do that. Be smart and work it to your advantage because they're going to come to you.
Yeah, we walk away, as Aussie hunters, I think we walk away from too good a spots too much of the time. What we find, we think we find where we need to be. We don't see any animals there. Then we hear something over there, or we think, well, maybe they're over that ridge, down on the next bench, up around the next corner of the creek. And instead of being patient and thinking what time of year it is, what time of day it is, am I better off just sitting back off here because I've got sign in front of me here everywhere, especially during the rut. Like just them scrapes Ian's talking about, if you can stay off them and there's multiple scrapes there, or you've actually pushed a heap of deer off them because they've busted you, or a doe's walked in you, a buck's walked in you, and they're bolted, everything's cleared out. Get yourself set up in a real good spot so you've got plenty of cover behind you, in front of you, and just sit back. And sooner or later something will come back in there. If you can hind call or doe call a little every now and then, rattle every now and then if nothing's happened, but just be patient.
Sit back, be patient.
Yeah, we walk away from too good areas too much of the time, try to cover too much ground instead of taking it real easy where we need to be, where all the sign is. That's what we've been looking for, and yet we still, because we see no critters, we want to go further afield and look A to B, you know. And you got to consider, if you've got a 200 acre place and that's what it's all happening there, it'll happen there again, whether it's half an hour's time, 3 hours time, 6 hours time like that afternoon, they'll be back, especially on scrapes. Like, you can't ignore them during the rut.
No. And I was on a property that I was just starting to learn and come up and seen this scrape, and I was like, yeah, and then you could hear the buck, and he was probably a couple 100 metres away, and I was like, oh yeah, and I looked at it and thought, this is yummy, like he's got to be coming down this gully and all that stuff. And then I just did a couple of doe calls, and the first doe call, he just turned his head and like screamed at me. I was like, he's a bit closer than what I thought. And then I did a whole heap of really fast ones, and he just comes screaming into like 15, you know, and it's just like, and it's not like me, it's me,
Yeah,
because it's what it is. It feels like there's another stag coming up and belting her in the arse.
That's a doe cycling.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Them
and
days
she's
like-
on his scrape, so he's like, oh my God, unbelievable. Merry Christmas. You know, and that's why he's just dropped his guard and just come screaming in. And it's just,
What about adversity? How are they with their rub trip? Do they come back to that?
No, not. Oh, yeah, they will. They'll rub on it. They'll rub on certain trees, and they're more. Well, they'll come back to their wallers.
Yeah, but it seems like they can more communal with spray than I.
Yeah, they will. No, they don't mind it, mate. Well, communal with a tree sale fallow and that, like they've got their own thing, but you'll find a heap other. If you put a camera on a rub tree with a fallow, you'll be blown away by how many fallow visit it at different times. As soon as the big fella's gone away these days, the next ones are in there rubbing their scent on there. They want a piece of the action, you know. And Chittle the same. Where Chittle preach and scrape, it's not just one doing it; it's dozens. All right. As far as rooster go, they're different deer. But they're more arrogant style of deer, as in they don't mind. Don't get me wrong, they like the thick shit. But they also like being visible. That's why they put their grass in their antlers and strut around like they're 10 times the size of what they are. You know what I mean? But they're different deer. They're cool as shit, but they're
pig with antlers.
Pig with antlers, yeah.
yeah. They're like even when you're skinning them and that, they've got coarse hair on them, they're covered in mud. The only thing difference between them and hogs is their antlers on the top of them, I dare say. That's about it.
If you've got an area where it's getting smashed, that's not a bad place to just sort of.
You know, mate. Yeah, that's where they're frequent. A lot's frequent. You work out your wind, what it's doing in the afternoon or morning. Work out where your cover is, and work out if you have to be. The wind allows me to be there in the morning undetected, and I've got plenty of cover. Or the wind's better in the afternoon, and I've got the cover there. Just you got to every scenario is a little bit different, but you just got to work it out. You know. even like the best thing you can do when you're starting off is get yourself a diary, just write shit down or put it in your phone. The day it was overcast, sunny, how dry it was, how much water's about, what I saw, what the moon was doing. After 4 or 5 years, 6 years, if you're hunting the same place, you might crack a pattern, and you can, you know, after a while, you won't need to write shit down, you just know, if that makes sense. Like, otherwise, like I said, if you've got a memory like me, things take a while to sink in a little bit, write it down. Yeah.
By the way, that whiskey's outstanding. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Jobra's a Sudge.
Just on, like when you get to a property, let's say you haven't had the chance to get out and pre-scout it, what are your first moves to find those scrapes, those well-worked areas?
As soon as you get to the property, crack a beer, sit down and get your binos out and look around.
Get your vantage points.
Yeah.
Yep. If it's in the hills, get your vantage points. If you can get on Google, like you can sort of
Funnels and stuff like that.
yeah. Look at Google and there's an open ridge. There's a big open face. It's on the side. You might be able to. It's no use getting on a real timbered hill to sort of glass because you got trees and shit in your road. So if you can find those open hills that are less timbered or those rocky bluffs that you can get up and look into certain gullies, like, or if you can drive around and pull up at different points, pull up, glass and look. But yeah, late afternoons, early mornings, that's when shit's moving. That's when you need to be glassing or listening, and that'll dictate where you need to be. Or
use your Google to find your water too.
Yeah.
Because water's life, right?
Yep.
And if you can't find the water when you're actually out there and walking around, you listen for bird life because without water you won't have birds, right? Yep. And birds will tell you where there's water. If you're wondering, is that creek wet or not? If you can't hear birds, guess what? Creek's dry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, utilise the other critters, but water's important.
Binos are such an underrated tool,
Cool.
and we see it all the time with guiding and stuff up there. And I don't know whether it's because the clients sort of say, there's a guide there, he should be doing it, but it's how much you use the binos. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, my bino harness is a couple of years old and it's getting pretty ordinary. And
Just smell it.
Oh, I actually washed it last year and I was pretty horrified. It was pretty ordinary, but anyway. And but how much you're just walking along and you're going bang, because it's not, a lot of people just have this in their head where they're going, okay, for hunting pigs or deer, you're going to see a whole animal. You're not looking for a whole animal. You're looking for an ear tip or a hoof or an antler. You know what I mean? Like, they're little things that you're just seeing, and your mind and your eyes will start to look in the areas that you know they should be, and you'll pick up on those little things where you come around a corner, like in the Cape, and you just look in the ground and you go, what's that? That looks odd. And then you put it up and you go, that's the bottom of his hoof and he's laying on his side. Or with an antler just sitting there just moving, you go, what's that? And like a little bird moving or something like that. Yeah, that wasn't a bird. Next minute there's a tip of an antler. They're the things that you're looking for, not a whole animal, you know.
Binos are that, mate. I used to be fit before I learned how to use binos properly because I'd walk everywhere and didn't know that I was ruining my hunting area just by getting out and scouting because I was just scenting the shit out of it. I find it far more pleasurable to sit in camp or sit at a vantage point, crack a cold one and sit there and just glass for hours. Can just do it forever. But
if you've got real thick country and you've got no option, you can't, glassing's no good for you, and you can't drive everywhere. Well, you're going to have to do it by foot, but you're going to have to hunt slow ass. Like, I mean, just even if you think you're going slow, you're not. You're probably 2 or 3 steps, and listen. And don't listen to birds and get used to different birds, because birds make certain noises when we come there. They'll make the same noises if there's deer or hogs there, cattle. They get, you know what I mean? They get upset with something in their space, whether it's too close to their nest. So just start paying attention to all your surroundings as well. And if you're going slow enough in those spots there, if it's thick, there's going to be noise from something cracking, like either stepping on leaves, cracking a twig, whatever. If you crack, just pay attention. That's that way. Could be roos, could be wombats, could be anything, but just you're hoping it's a deer. Next minute, you hear another crack. Think, righto, this is where I need to focus. So, and then make sure your wind is good and just slow. 2 or 3 steps, listen, glass. 2 or 3 steps, listen, glass. And when you're moving, make sure your movements aren't, when I say slow, I'm talking slow motion. So if you've got binoculars, harness, clip it back, should be back. All your movements are like binoculars are up, looking, then glass as much as you can. If it's thick, you only be glassing like areas. This is where your 10s, I struggle with 10s in thick country because I can't see enough. I use 8s because my field of view is a little bit bigger, if that makes sense. And you're just glassing through there and you're looking for a little movement. You're looking for a stick move like that, or there's a branch down there, next minute it's steady again, next minute it's moving again. So you just got to pay attention. You're not just looking for whole animals, parts of animals. Look for something else that's there.
And hopefully if you're, obviously this is the time for greatness is the next month and a half, but hopefully you've got a property that you've actually been going to now, and then you've already done the damage, I suppose. You've found your knowledge, you've found what's working, old scrapes, old rubs, whatever that might be there, because a lot of those stags will live in that same from year to year if they're not getting shot. And that's where you can go and say, okay, while I'm walking there, I'm getting my fitness up, B, I'm having a sniff around, and then you walk down into somewhere and you might blow a deer out because it's still going to be living in the area, and you go, right, yeah, well, that was a pretty shit way of how I come into this gully or creek system, whatever it is. You go, how can I do that better? And then you'll get that knowledge now. So when it is the heat of the battle and you hear the deer in there and doing all that, you go, well, if I go that way, that's not going to end well. I've got to come in from this other side. And that's what you sort of want to do. It's always a chess game. That's why hunting's like just more than just killing an animal. It's working out how I can beat that animal on its own turf. And that's what you just got to work out, is doing it all now before then. And then when it's on, you should have an idea, because there's going to be rubs now starting. The deer are out there rubbing. They're starting to get their scrapes. The reds are going to be starting to do their wallows. They're going to be starting to move in. Then next week and a half, they're going to be starting moving the stags. So that's when the stags might not be there on your place. In the next 10 days to 14 days, you're going to start seeing rubs and starting to see their areas in there. You know?
Yeah, if you've got a place and you've got stags or bucks there at the moment, you need to really not be here and be out there hunting, because in the next week they're not going to be there. They're going to be moving. They're going to be going to where the females are. And it's opposite. You might have a place that's full of females and you're seeing no rubs, no nothing. But as long as your females there, the next 4 weeks or 6 weeks are going to be, pretty special. Like they're going to move on there. So I think some people have got the luxury of having both. They can watch bucks or stags rub out, and they can watch them. They've got females there as well. So, we haven't all got that luxury. So you've just got to make the most of it. If you know you've got your bachelor mobs there, you need to be hunting them up to the start of March, and you should be able to pattern them if you don't push them too much there, because they won't do too. They'll feed in a certain area, they'll water in a certain area. The only thing that'll push them is either cattle moving in there and eating their feed into a certain paddock, might push them into the next paddock, or their water drying up, or March comes around, so everything starts getting a bit itchy, they start pushing each other out, and then one by one they break up for them bachelor mob, and they're going to go to their ground, and their ground could be 20 k's away.
Yeah.
It mightn't be just next paddock over, it could be 20 k's away. And you won't see them again until May, June, maybe June after all the hinds have finished cycling, because they don't just cycle through April. Like the ones that don't get serviced may cycle again in May. The ones that don't get serviced then may cycle again at the start of June.
And hunt smart, because it's a long wait until the next friggin' rut, right? Like, that's the time of year that we all wait for, if you're chasing deer, that is, of course. Yeah. And if you go out there and you go gung-ho and you're excited, and it's an exciting time, and you don't do the best by yourself and utilise your time well, Jesus Christ, the next 11 months is a long time, right? It's a really long time. You can hunt deer all year round, but there's
another species, mate.
Yeah,
You've got to extend it.
Yeah, I am. Fucking rooster. Bastard things. But do yourself a favour and take your time and hunt smart. Yeah.
That slow hunting thick bush, you've got say a block, it's all thick.
Yeah.
How would you, say you drive to a spot, get out of the jeep, or would you walk 500 metres fairly quickly before you sleep?
Mate, it all no. Still,
Yes.
If you can be in deer, like my hunting blocks where we camp, where we drive to, like you're nearly hunting from where we go. So you've got to be a bit mindful of that. I struggle. Sometimes you've got to get out in the morning, in the dark, and move, and get to, throw caution in the wind and get from A to B. But don't do that in the first morning, because you might be walking past something that's so close to camp, wouldn't you say? Like I said, if you go you might blow 2 or 3 stags if you could walk that 500 yards or a K, 2 Ks. This is where it was last year. If you've got time on your side, ease in there. Ease in there. Pay attention to your game trails, crossing. Pay attention to the sign that's there. And then 2 or 3 mornings time, you're a K and a half. Go think, fuck, I've hunted this last couple of mornings, nothing much happened. I'm going to go through that. But a lot of times in the mornings, and use it to your advantage, if you see stuff there in the mornings and you get held up or they're crossing through, gets into the thick shit, think, well, righto, he's doing that. The next morning, if he does it again, well, you know where you need to be. That following morning, you know what I mean? You need to be, if he's doing the same path.
Someone shot a stag 20 yards out of camp 2 years ago with us. Out of camp, 20 yards. Like you could have thrown a brick from the door of the shed and hit this bastard in the head.
I don't like walking.
So it was pretty good carry out that day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
got back to the hut and the 200 metres away.
Yeah.
But also, like Brad was just saying then, like your first morning, like a lot of this time it's going to have dew and stuff like that. You're not actually physically looking for a deer. You're seeing where they've been going and feeding through the night, and you'll see all the dew's been taken off, and you go, shit, that's a pretty well-used pad. So that's telling you that you're in the right spot. It's not you see a deer's ass running off. It's like that's telling you that there's movement in the corral.
Yeah. And what that's also telling you is where you need to be or where they're going that morning compared to the afternoon. You know, just because something disappears in the thick scrub that morning doesn't mean it's all over. Well, you know, he's going to come out of there in the arvo, right? So you've got to work out whether or not you need to be up in that thick scrub in the afternoon to catch him up in there, because it's going to take him 2 hours to come back out. It might be too late by the time he gets back out of that crop country. It's no use hunting it last thing in the afternoon because he's still making his way there. So try and meet him if you can halfway or closer to their bedding areas in the afternoons. In the mornings, if you can, and you know they're getting up high, but you've got no play on the open country down low, well, get up again close to where the bedding areas are. If the wind allows you, the thermals allow you, get up there and wait. Get them to come to you, especially in the thick cover, because we make too much noise there. Well, they are onto you, look, and you've got to be moving slow. Everything you've got to be doing slow motion, not just, like I said, just smooth movements. No rangefinder up, binoculars up, bow down, look around, move your head like this. Like if you move your eyes, look at the ground, look with your eyes first, and then move your head down. The same when you look up, move your eyes and rotate your head nice and smooth, you know.
And always in your body line as well, the same as with the bow. Like you see it all the time, especially up in the Cape, where people have their bow down the side, they've pulled their arrow out, they've flicked it over like that, then they put it on and they flick it up like that, then they want to do the draw. Like, what animal does that in the world? You know what I mean? So learn to hold your bow in your line, pull your arrow out, flip it over in your line, and then just draw back. It's very hard for them for depth perception, but if you're winging something like that, that's not really natural. You know, like we can get away with a fair bit because there's trees, and obviously if you're in front of a tree, it's harder then to see. So if you're keeping everything in that movement, you can push that bow out in front and slowly draw. That's why you see a lot of people that are over bowed and they're doing the high sort of sticking and all that. Well, drop your ego and drop it down a few pounds, because this is going to save you on a stag that's coming in at this time of the year. The slow movement, watching what they're doing, looking at the stag as it's coming through, as it's, you know, like we were saying way before, is like you got pads, you've got trees. As soon as it comes around, this movement here is going to get you away than that.
90% of the stuff's lost when it comes to drawing a critter. You've done all the hard work, get in there, and if you can't draw that bow nice and smooth, well, you're probably overbowed, or she's got pretty aggressive cams. And like I've hunted with a lot of different like chicks over the years, and they will not use bows that are over. But it's got to be comfortable for them, and it's good to watch them draw, shoot, and they honestly, they put us to shame because there's no ego.
I was about to say there's so much easier to teach.
Yeah. There's no ego. All the blokes are trying to shoot 70, 80 pound, and then they go to let it down, and it's like they're starting to shake here, and next minute let it down, the arrow flings off the side, or they go to draw back, and it's like they twist themselves inside out like a pretzel. They're trying ball back, and everything they know they're there. What you need to be able to do is sit yourself on your ass, be able to draw back sitting on your ass and ease down. And if you can't do that, you're shooting too much poundage. Yeah. And you don't need to. You can, if you gut shoot something with 80 pound and you get gut shoot something with 40 pound, you still gut
same result.
Doesn't matter.
In the corn box.
All right? So what I'm saying by that is just accuracy's king. Like you're going to need to shoot something that's accurate like that, you continually accurate. We don't, you know, and most of the time with blokes, if we knock their bows back, a turn or two, Ian,
Heaps.
they still shoot. They shoot way better, and they look way more comfortable. They don't get fatigued as much. And in those situations, at the end of the day, when you busted your ass, like, and sweated your guts out, you can still draw back in any situation. Not just,
And
I don't know if I can pull this back now, you know.
And that's what we were
Especially when
saying.
it's cold.
Who were we talking to before this morning about 80 pound? And I was saying like he wants to go to New Zealand and get an 80 pound bow. And I said that'd be the worst thing I've ever heard, because you think about New Zealand, you got a backpack on your back, you're climbing Mount Everest, you're up there, you're sucking for oxygen, and there's a chamois or tar in front of you, and you got an 80 pound bow, you're hot, you're cold, whatever it is, and you got to try and pull it back and be accurate. That sounds horrible to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just don't need it.
Or if you get pinned down in winter on a rooster stag out in the flats, and it's cold, and you're waiting for him to stand up, and you've been on your knees for way too long, and all of a sudden it goes time to draw your bow. Like it's not an easy feat to do if you're overbowed. It's got to be.
And there's obviously people that can shoot 80 pounds good, and I'm for it for shorter draw people. I get it. Like if you're a 28 southern side of 28 and you're strong enough to do it, you're going to get a little bit more energy and stuff in your arrow setup, and it's no worries if you can do it. But for the average Joe Blow, especially the bows that are on the market today, 70 pound, 60 pound will kill anything on this continent.
If you put it in the right spot. As long as you put it in the right spot.
Exactly. And accuracy will 10 times be from poundage. A well-tuned bow and a good arrow combination, cut on contact broadhead.
How low of poundage would you start to be worried about? Like, say you've got a girl that's just starting and she's pulling, say, 40 pounds.
Yep. No. Just limitations. Like set yourself limits and stick to them.
So what about for kids? Like say, I don't know, into, I don't know, 10?
Yeah.
So we had one last year, young Rosie, and she was 32 pound, I think, 33 pound, and she shot a young boar, I think it was, and a sow, and her arrows had complete pass-throughs by memory. She was using a Zot and well tuned. She shot it in the right spot.
And kept the shots like under 20, you know?
Yep. And waited for the broadside shot, not shooting quartering on, not looking for bone, you know. And that's the biggest thing, once again, with when you go back to egos. And this is going to be where it's all going to do in the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, you know, where people are roaring in stags and they're going to be coming in and they're going to be quartering on, and you're going to be shooting at that front shoulder, which is one of the toughest parts on an animal, whereas you just got to wait. And the animal's going to be walking, either he's going to straighten up or he's going to sit there and balk a little bit. And as he balks, what's he going to do? He's going to turn broadside, and then he's going to run away, then he's going to stop and then turn back and go, what was that? And he's just opened that shot up for you that's way better than trying to punch him through the front shoulder at 15, 20 metres. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can do it, but the percentage ratio of success and crying is really bad. You know what I mean? Like, whereas if you're just a bit patient and think about how that body's going to change or get yourself into a better position, hence like what at the start where Brad was saying, if you've got someone that's going out there, you're calling, you're going to be off to the side on a 45, they're going to be coming to the caller, they're giving you a broadside shot. If you're by yourself, it's obviously a different ball game, but then, you know, like I see it all the time, like with people like tuning bows and doing that, where they tell you all the horror stories and you just sort of sit there and you go, if you had waited, this might would have happened. And then you see their eyes sort of rock up to the sky, and then you can see the cogs turning, and then you go, yeah, it's exactly what happened. It's just learning out that body of an animal, same as like up in the Cape with the pigs. If they're coming in, they're looking at you, and then they'll balk and they'll run away and they'll go, I don't know what that was, and turn around, and if you're still at full draw, it's on.
Unless a deer has smelt you, he will stop and turn and look, especially if you drop a hind call after he's initially spooked. He'll only go 10, 15, he'll prop and turn back. They're inquisitive by nature. They've got to stop and go, well, did I just really see what I think I just saw?
What are they looking at? You're in full camo, you should have background there, you should have something there. They're going, what was that? You know, like that tree just moved. That's what they're sort of thinking, you know what I mean? Like,
just got to keep in mind too, like before we get off this subject, like that shoulder on a lot of deer, just because they're broadside, doesn't mean that shoulder's not in play, because a lot of deer will be broadside to you and they'll stop and then they'll just twist a little bit like that. They won't bring one leg around, they'll just twist a little bit, all of a sudden his shoulder is back. And it's covering everything you want to hit. And then the people that aim halfway up behind the shoulder, they're actually, when he goes to take a step, they're actually 4 inches back behind the shoulder. They're hitting them
And you're hitting the diaphragm and
yeah, they're hitting the back wings of those lungs where that diaphragm curls back around and the liver sits in there and the stomach's in behind it. Then, like, you've got to understand that vitals are virtually sits between the shoulders, like from side on. The hub of the lungs and the heart all sits between the two shoulders. If one leg's back a bit, it's starting to get towards the back of the vitals. That's if they're broadside. Just be aware if they don't. It's very rarely you get a deer stop with his two legs together and just look at you like this. You know, it's all this here and it's bang. They twist their front, their neck will twist around, and this leg actually comes back and covers their shoulders. Pigs not so much because their necks only. They really haven't got a neck, but they don't. You know, they sort of. You've still got more shoulder there to shoot with a pig, but deer doesn't seem to mean what they are. That shoulder comes back, and you nearly got to shoot them through that shoulder. But you've still got plenty to play with, like that bone's right at the front of that shoulder.
yeah. And just remember, we're not looking at where the arrow's entering. It's always where it's exiting to get through that path of in between where the heart and lungs are. So sometimes you look at it, if it's quartering away, you're going to try and shoot it straight up its leg or whatever like that, where you're way in front of everything. You want to see it on the other side of the shoulder. On the other side, that's where you got to drive it. So it could be the last rib if it's that broadside, like what Brad's just saying. But just when you're picking a spot, just you're going through the goodies, not halfway up. And that's what happens with everyone with animals. They see this much and they go, I'm going to put the pin in the middle. We're always aiming for the bottom third. Deer are very, very good with jumping strings and all that sort of stuff. So if you're aiming for that, they don't jump the string, it's taking the top of the ticker off. If they do, you're going to hit them in the lungs, and it's going to be joyful for you, because if you're aiming for the middle, they're going to drop, it's going to go straight over. And their reaction time's out of control, especially at this time of the year, because you're bringing them to you, so they've already got an alert sense with them. They're going for a purpose, and they're going to see what they want to look for something, so they're going to be on edge.
All we're saying is just don't take it to extremes, but if you can just come onto the shoulder a little bit and just follow that leg up, but just come onto the shoulder a bit, look, only matter of that much, you're sort of going to be way better off than what you are. If you hit them that far behind the shoulder and it's slow, you got a big day ahead of you.
I always just look at that, exactly what Brad said. You've got the little, for all animals have got like a little tuft of fur on their elbow, right? And I'm always an inch to the right and 2 inches up from that. That's where I just aim on any animal it is. That's what you're looking at, and that's where the path will be, depending on to get through that. Because when we do all the cutting and all that stuff up in the Cape, where you've got an animal on the ground and you're teaching people the anatomy, there's so many people that go, and you hear it with people talking, I'm shooting behind the shoulder. And then you grab the whole leg and you just lift it up. We've cut the ribs out. You've got the lungs, the heart, the diaphragm, the guts, and you lift it up and they're going, fuck, I've been aiming at the diaphragm the whole time. And you go,
they're shooting behind the lungs.
Yeah, you know, and then they're just like, and then all of a sudden you see it clicks in and where the heart is, and then the rest of that week's going to be joy, you know, because then their skills and what they're learning become way more successful, because the whole time they've been hunting, they've been hearing everyone's words and terminologies. I'm shooting it behind the shoulder, right? But Brad's done heaps of videos where the legs come up, you've got that knuckle, the bone goes forward, and then it hits the big knuckle that we're talking, then it comes into your shoulder blade. There's this the triangle everyone hears about.
Magic triangle.
You know what I mean? That's there, but it's straight up the leg that's your line when you're looking at anything. Yeah, that's not behind that leg, it's straight up the leg. So if you've got that animal, that's what you're aiming at, and that's going to give you success, and it doesn't matter whether it's a 35-pound bow or an 80-pound bow, you hit it in there, you've only got a rib to contend with, and all these bows, these modern bows with a cut-on contact broadhead is going to go through there, it's going to zip through, everyone's going to be happy.
Well, don't get me wrong, with red deer, they got fairly good-sized lungs on them, and most critters, and it all depends. You think, well, I hit that one half up behind the shoulder and it killed him. I hit this one half up behind the shoulder, but he went 150. I had to follow him up. And a lot of times that's all to do if that leg was back a bit. The other thing it's got to do with if they're breathing in, breathing out. If they're breathing in, their lungs are full of air. All the veins, arteries, more veins inside those lungs are further apart. but they've got a lung full of air. You punch an arrow through that, they've still got oxygen in their system before they bolt off, right?
This is the time of year where they fight. This is what they do, right?
Yeah.
And they've got this hyper vigor, and I still can't work it out, but they seem to take more to kill at this time of year than what they do.
Blood coagulates way quicker.
Like
I
it's
reckon,
like
that's from the fight.
it's nature trying to protect them from dying from adrenaline. And they seem like, unless you hit them well, like if you single lung them, you, like Brad said, you're in for a bastard of a day, right? So take your time. Patience and confidence are two very important things with what we do. And that patience is a big one.
Because you see, like what we were just saying a second ago, is that the deer now in the last 4 or 5 weeks have really started, like the testosterone, the hormones, everything's starting to come on, and then their neck's getting thicker to protect them from the fighting. And then when you get them and you've got them in the rut and you're caping them out, and you just see how much they've got bruises and all that stuff, but they're going back again. You know what I mean? They're still going. And when you look at everyone else in that time, who wants to get beaten up on Saturday night and go back out on Sunday night and have it again? You know what I mean? Like, so I reckon there's obviously something going on with their bloods and all that, because there's times where I've shot deer out of the rut and it's just been like garden hose, and you look at that same shot and it could be like what Brad's saying, the lungs were higher, the lungs were there, but the blood on the ground from when a good buck is, and it's gone 30, 40 metres, you've pickled it, but then you look at it and you go, wow, this hasn't got as much blood on the deck as what you sort of think. And I think it's just how the body has got those hormones where it stops it straight away. And I don't know, like scientifically, if you've got a scientist to say, test the blood 6 weeks before the rut and test it in there, whether they'd say, yeah, there is a coagulant sort of thing that comes up in their hormones that does stop it. Because they're tough bastards.
And some of the stags that you skin, the wounds from them fighting are significant, like puncture wounds from tines that go into lungs, but they're still going. So what if you don't hit them square, if you don't hit them right, and you don't get as much peno as you want, or if it's had to cut through too much bone, like the scapular bone, and your arrow is slowed down a lot and it doesn't get the penetration you need, you're not going to find that deer. He's gone. You might as well just go and buy another carton of piss and get drunk and cry about it. That's what usually ends up happening.
You know, the only hassle you got with going back to a shoulder shot, like we like shooting them with their broadside through that bottom third, is that the hole through the shoulders, when they're walking and running, doesn't line up with the hole in the rib cage. So you don't get as... unless the arrow stays in there and you've cut a main artery, you won't get as good blood travel. But that deer should nowhere near travel as far as what it will with a high behind the shoulder shot, if that makes sense. Harry, got a beer out in that Eskia. Might have to get me a beer. Starting to swear already.
In regards to the shot process or the placement, you guys are obviously talking about that one spot, but are you guys, when you're looking through your peep and you've got your pins on them, are you trying to aim something specifically? Are you trying to pick
Always,
yep.
Pick a spot.
Yep.
Always.
Pick your spot.
You're thinking about one spot.
Mine's at elbow.
Yeah.
That's just what I've trained, is I look for that little tuft, and you'll understand this year now that we sort of brought it to your attention. You'll see that little tuft. Mine's an inch to the right and 2 inches high, and it's on pigs, deer, goats, everything like that. Whatever you hunt, that's where you're looking for. And that's that line where it just, my eyes go straight up that leg. So if it's broadside, we're just talking about broadside animal here, feeding, whatever, it's unaware, and it's just straight up that leg, and it's just in there and bang.
That's hard to see on a silhouetted animal, like to pick a spot. Then you've got a shape, but then it comes back to knowing where
shit is.
Whether it's
yeah.
And we see it all the time, and we sort of, like, I know Brad is and myself and Maddie and all those, like, with advocates of, if the shot's not on, it's not fucking on. Don't just launch an arrow and say, hope for the best. There's a few guys that are on social media that sort of go, yep, no worries, they do it, and frustrates the shit out of me. But you're a better hunter, and you're going to get more respect from us by saying that I just couldn't make that shot. I just didn't feel confident, right? It's better to let that deer go, or a pig, or whatever you're chasing, and go, he beat me that time, I'm going to have another go at you.
Yeah.
Because if you shoot it, and it could be, let's just say this time of the year, it's a beautiful 12-point red stag that you've probably been working your ass off for, and you've just made something happen and you just fucked it. How are you going to feel? You know what I mean? Like, whereas if you turned around and go, no, that shot wasn't on, I wasn't confident, the sun was in my eyes, whatever it was that has, and we've all got it, like in that little thing on the shot process, when you draw back, the little alarm bell goes, oh, oh, and then you go, no, I fucking got it, puss. You know, that's not good. You're just going to be pissed off with yourself.
No, you're a way better person if you can.
100%.
And then just soak it in. If you got close enough anyway to shoot him,
Take
and
the
it doesn't
positives.
and it doesn't pay out, we'll think, fuck, I've got the drop on you today, bud. But he's, you know, and you've done the right thing. You've let him go, but he's still there, right? So if you don't get him, one of your mates might get him. Might be there for the next 2 days for you to have another go. But if you hit him wrong and you knew better, but if something's not perfect and you don't know that you can kill him with that shot, and there's some doubt in your mind, you're better off, honestly, don't shoot. Doesn't matter if you spend 3 hours on him, 4 hours on him. Still pretty cool process being, you know,
'Cause
within
we
that,
see it.
you'll hear all that, you'll hear all those little things that they make, those little sneezes, coughs, when they're chewing grass, you'll hear all that sort of shit. Not many people get to hear it all. And to spend a certain amount of time within that distance of certain critters is like, that's why that's why I do it. To me, it's sort of that's why I'm shooting a bow, not a rifle, you know. And if I want to shoot something every time I go out, I wouldn't be picking up a bow, you know, especially if I had to feed numbers, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And we see it up in the Cape all the time too. Like, we're pretty advocate up there for 30 yards is the maximum people are going to shoot at a critter. And the majority of the shots that we're shooting up there is, I'll give that one to you, is 20 metres and below, right? And the reason for that isn't that we're good shots. We can be shooting at 50 and 60 while we're having beers of an afternoon, like on the day off and stuff like that, because we're not hurting anything, right? And we're honing our skills, because if you can shoot out at 60 at 25 metres, it's going to be a chip shot for you, right? But what happens is adrenaline, you know, the want, the need, and all that sort of stuff is so much of an override when it gets to the point of, you know, when it's all happening. If you're getting it closer, those fuck-ups are getting smaller and smaller. And we see it with clients that when you bring them back to under 30, our success ratio is way higher and everyone's happy in camp. No one's got burrs in their bottom lip because they've gut shot something at 15 or 20 because, or they've gone, no, I can shoot out at 35, I'm a good shot. And by the time they've done their shot process, the pig's moved and you just shot it in the pizzle and you just looked at it and said, well, what were you doing? You know, and then, you know, all that attitude of, oh, well, fucking there's a guide, go and get me another one. Yeah, righto.
So what are you doing in that moment because the adrenaline's up?
Breathing.
Breathe.
Your brain doesn't work very well. Like, you guys have many years of experience, so that shot process is really ingrained as muscle memory. For people who are new, what do you
Massive.
suggest they do?
Exactly what they just said. So it's like anything is perfect practice. Everyone that's sort of had me in their life will know how I teach people and do all that stuff. It's about getting into that subconscious of just pulling the bow back, going through your shot sequence and doing all that. Then obviously you got the adrenaline. So what do you try and do when you're hyperventilating and that? Get the paper bag on, you're breathing, right? So if you're coming into a shot where it's all going to happen, enjoy the moment. Don't be scared of the moment. Enjoy it and say, this is all going to happen, unreal. Suck some big ones in, right? And then just get ready and just go, I've got this. Have the confidence in yourself to say, I can do this. All I need to do is pick a spot and go through my shot. It's really that simple, right? Everything else can be, you can fall into a massive heap afterwards and turn into a gibbering mess and cry, I don't care, you know what I mean? You can kiss Brad, but he's a good pretty, he likes that when you...
Yeah. Harry likes a hug as well.
Yeah. And, but yeah, that's the biggest thing is if you're practicing and doing your fundamentals right, because you see it all the time. Like I see it with all the clients that come to me and that they haven't found their shot. They're looking for their shot or they haven't been shown how to find their shot. So when the shit hits the fan, they just go to water because they haven't been practicing and finding their shot, where it all comes down to this is what you're training for, right? Another one is really good for practicing is when you come into the rut and you're doing your practice, you shoot your arrow, shoot one arrow, because that's all you're going to do, right? You're carrying your bow for 8 hours a day, you're going to shoot one arrow. There's no use sitting there going, I'm going to shoot 20 arrows, I'm feeling good, now let's go for a hunt. right, and expect to have that same feeling. You've got to have one shot while you're cold and doing that. But run to the target, run back, and then get you another arrow while you're still puffing, because that's going to give you the same adrenaline pump where you draw back and go, holy fuck, this isn't good. Because that's going to give you the mental stimulation to say, this is what it's going to feel like when my veins are popping out of me. I can do this. I'm going to calm, I'm going to slow everything down, make the shot go slow, pick your spot and go through your shot process. That's the way I sort of perfect practice and get that out there. Don't be scared of it. Enjoy it. That's what we're all here for. You know, like a lot of people go, oh, I'm going to get the jitterbugs. I'm going to get that. I'm going, fuck yeah, it's unreal. That's what I'm looking for. If I could put it in a bottle of
Best drug ever.
there, you know,
Best drug ever.
So don't be scared of it. Just enjoy it, and that's what you're looking for. But control it, and that's why I say work out something that works for you. And do it. For me, when I was shooting, I'd shoot at 50 metres in practice. I'd run to the target. I'd run back. And this body doesn't like running. But anyway, and then you'd just shoot it because you'd be sitting there going, oh, yeah, this is a feeling I want. This is what I'm sort of going through. And then you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden you'll slow up, and then all of a sudden everything will go, then the shot will break. And then you just go, that was a good shot. I was stoked with that.
Leading up to this time of year, and you've probably heard me say a few times on podcasts and all the rest of it, how important confidence is. At this time of year, I'm walking out my back door. I have one arrow on the string. I have arrows in my quiverizer, so I get used to the weight. I'm shooting the same all the time. Like Ian said, you shoot one arrow. That's it. I walk out, I punch it, dot it, and I go, that was a good shot. Take my bow back inside. I leave the arrow in there. And I use the same arrow the next day. I walk out and I remind myself that was a bloody good shot. Pull it out, grab it, shoot it again. And I just keep building my confidence that way. If I don't get it in where I want to get it, I shoot again. And if I miss it the second time, I leave it because I'm not on that day. But if I keep telling myself that I can do that at 20 yards, day after day after day with one arrow, that's the least of your worries when it comes time to dropping the hammer on a critter. So,
just don't be scared of the feeling. That's the biggest thing I can sort of say. Embrace it, because once you embrace it, you'll understand what I'm saying, and you'll go, I'm getting what he's going. Like you're going to get. If I've been doing this 37, 38 years or something now, and I still get it, and I still love it. Like it's watch. And if I think the day that I don't get it is the day that I'm probably going to
give it away.
You know what I mean? Because it's like that's what it's all about, and you shouldn't be scared of it. It's just like what you're going out there for. So don't be, because like that's what a lot of people do. It's that thing where I can't control myself. Well, no, grab it and hold it and go, how can I be better in that situation?
I think a lot of it is ego as well.
Oh.
You're in that environment there.
Yeah.
You've got the animal in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, this is my chance.
Yeah.
Got to send it.
The only person putting pressure on them is themselves. Right.
With range, you know, we get to full draw, we get the pin on the target, and it's like literally going through that process and saying, I don't have to take a shot.
Perfect.
Before executing the shot,
Yeah.
so you have that mental reset before sending the shot,
And-
not just adrenaline trick.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see it like there's people that, and we see it all the time with the progression from the clients up in the Cape, where they'll in their head, and it's all in their head when they're doing this, is the pig's dead to the world, sleeping on its side, opened it up, and we've snuck into 15, 16, 17 metres, and then you go, right, yeah, you know where you're hitting, and it's like, as soon as I hear the words, yeah, you just go, ooh, mate, hand on the shoulder, all right? And then you go, mate, you're just going to hit on that bottom third, just an inch above the dirt, right? And they're like, yeah, okay, and you can hear it. It's all of a sudden, it's just gone. As soon as you hear, yeah, it's always going to end you shit, all right? Always.
The thing is, you seem to take, the stalk takes so long sometimes, and you finally get into that distance, and then for some reason everyone tries to rush it up.
Yeah.
Instead of, look, I'm here now, I've got to make this happen. Well, he's been there for the last heaps of minutes. Like everything, yeah, the wind might be a bit finicky and that, you mightn't have much time, but it's like, you just got to wait them options. It's not going to always be like that. If things are way in your favour, just slow it down, breathe, just go over things. You can't, there's a lot of times when you can't gin around, and there's other times where you've got all the time in the world. But self-consciously, sometimes it's just like everyone just seems to gets in there, that adrenaline kicks in, here we go, we just about to do this, and next minute everything starts, your heart rate picks up, you start moving quicker, you try to rush things instead of just taking those couple of breaths and really concentrating on and focus on what you need to do and burn a hole where you need to hit that.
And that, yeah, if you've got any issues with anticipation, TP, all those things in the heat of the moment, they're going to bite you in the arse. Because basically, you see it before where all pins of the sight get onto the animal and kapow. And then you're seeing a porcupine walking away and you go, who are you aiming, mate? I don't know. I just aimed. And that's where you got to find your shot.
So it is, like I said, just slow yourself, if you can, slow yourself down.
Big breath.
Just even those last 5 yards before you get to where you're going.
Big breaths.
Just start sucking them big ones in. You've got that spot picked where you need to hit this critter. And it's the same thing, all this stuff, even ranging him at the last minute, that should all been done by the time you get there. Sometimes you're going to have time to range him again to verify it, but most of the time you should have that done 20 yards back.
And it's not,
it's less movement,
Yeah, you see so many times with the people like that, it's like you should be 50, 60 away, ranging that tree and go, that tree's 40, the animal's 60, so that's 20 metres. If I get to that, it's 20 metres, right? If it's 19 or 21, it shouldn't matter. Your bows are quick enough to get to that spot. You shouldn't get to 20 metres and then start ginning around and doing it just to confirm in your head.
Yeah, just it's extra movements. It's like something's only got to catch. You got to get your rangefinder out. Something clicks, and if it's, you know what I mean?
It's all over. Yep.
So if it's dead still and dead quiet, all that shit needs to be done before you get in there. Especially if something's sleeping. If something's head down feeding, it's been feeding in the same area for 20 minutes. Have it all sorted out. So if I get into that tree, that clump of grass, that bush, it's done. You don't want to have to get in there and then range him a couple of times again, readjust yourself. I'll range him again because I can. That's what it might be in your sequence to try and slow you down, but it also those movements, those extra unnecessary things, or double checking. And I don't want to contradict myself here. It's good to double check, but don't go overboard. You know what I mean? Don't. Sometimes slipping that rangefinder back in, dropping it down, having a bang against something, or even clipping your release aid on. Like I've had blows, arrows falling off rest on the side of the riser. Go to clip your release aid on. Go to do something next minute. Unnecessary noises, movements at the last minute. Just slow everything down there and keep everything sort of breathe. Get it all sorted out before you get there. Concentrate on the spot, and just think, I can kill him. If you don't think you can kill him, don't shoot. If you think you can kill him, go through your process and breathe and take it. Harry?
So do you check your gear like before you go out? And now, do you check it now? When you're pulling the knockers down, that make a noise.
You got to be. It's no use.
When you put your knock on, that make a click. When you're 20 metres from something.
Especially if you got new gear, and I've just got this stuff with got this new binder harness, new rangefinder, new whatever, new release aid. Make sure you understand your gear before you go out there. Like, no use getting out there and find out binder harness, some flip down with the metal stopper at the bottom, and you don't clip them in. That last bit's and it's like bang.
Mm. And like what Harry just said, it's a really good point. Like knocking arrows, it's very important when you're actually practicing and all that you hear that click, that same click, that noise, because then if you're shooting groups and then you don't hear that click, you go dunk and you go, oh shit, and then you look at that knock and it could have a crack in it. That just saved you a dry fire or anything. But when you're out hunting, you want to put an arrow on the string, is put your palm on the string and then just click it on like that, because it's taking away that ding, ding. Practice
the
that.
guitar string, yeah.
Yeah, so just put you there, because obviously you got it up here and you're doing it, and you shouldn't be really obviously Harry just sort of said 20 metres away. You'd like to be thinking that you've got an arrow on the string and you've done your shit before 20 metres. But sometimes we're all in that motion where you've come around a bend and there's something in a wallow or something like that, and you go, ooh, hello, and then you've got to do all that motion, but you've already practiced it.
Or even your backpacks might keep a noise. Sometimes it's like you can, you're breathing, it's dead quiet, and your backpack's going to creak, or this and that. Those scenarios, if you can, drop your pack, drop what you can. I'm not a big advocate. I'd rather you be able to shoot all quiet, leave everything on your bow. Don't have to drop your quiver like they do in the States. I don't understand that shit. Or if you keep your backpack on, just make sure you can get away with drawing without it making too much rustling, you know what I mean? You don't want it
you should be practicing with all the shit.
yeah.
All the shit that you're going to be wearing when you're in the field, you should be practicing with that. Even your face mask up.
Yeah.
Okay, if you need a kisser button on your string, put a kisser button on there so you get that anchor point.
Same thing. Gloves, you just want to make sure that everything feels the same. Your bow, your release. You come shooting summer, shooting summer to shooting winter. If you're going out in the morning or come back in the afternoon, haven't shot an arrow, you come back to camp, make sure your cold shot's a good one. I'll get all the boys here. This is your chance. You haven't had a shot this morning. There it is. Butt's there.
And I love it when, like, there's a whole group of yous with that and it's like banter at full draw, because it's something that's not normal. Like, everyone likes to be in the perfect environment. It's never perfect. So that's why if you got your mate sitting in there saying, oh, you're going to stuff this, it's, you got nothing, you watch this, it's going to go over the butt, that's the shit that you need, because then you're going in your head, no, I've got this. You know, I'm aiming just above that elbow and I'm picking that spot, and you do the shot, because that feeling of turning around and going, fuck you, I just got an awesome shot, is the same as when you're going to be holding the stag and that like that, because you've done it. You've gone through that procedure in your head. It's not all brand new going, I hope I don't fuck this. That's not really good.
I just want to go back to what we were talking about before, just quickly, and give you my take on that feeling of adrenaline or buck fever, as we call it. Like a lot of guys say, I got buck fever and I fucked the shot, all the rest of it. The sequence that runs through my mind is thoughts, feelings, actions, results. You know, control my thoughts, steady my feelings, do the actions that I have done 1,000 times over. It's just another shot, and then you enjoy the results. Okay. Sometimes things go wrong, but just keep it all under control. Invite that feeling into yourself. Don't try and fight it. Invite it in and be one with it. That's just my take on it. Just wanted to revisit that quickly.
Yeah, embrace it. Don't be scared of it. It's the same with me, because I'm a very competitive person, competitive in archery and all that sort of stuff. And
high jumper as well.
and that's like, all that stuff is the same thing, and that's where I've always gotten it from. When you're in a competition and you know it's on the line and all that stuff, it's not like, oh, this is terrible. It's like, oh, this is amazing. This is exactly what I've been training for. This is what I want. And then that's when you turn it around with hunting and buck fever and the trophy. You go, wow, this is a stag I've been chasing for ages. This is it. Don't sort of just go, oh my God, and then, you know, just love it. Because you're just going to enjoy it way more, and you're going to start like really embellishing that feeling, and it's not going to be as bad as what it was last time.
And he's not dead till he's dead. Don't have him dead before he's there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? Don't be overconfident. Don't be cocky. Yeah.
And it just seems to be like, I'm finding it pretty frustrating, and there's a lot of guys out there on social media, and social media is such a double-edged sword these days, where they advocate shooting out to 50, 80, 60, whatever it is, on shooting animals and that. And being a guide, and also, you know, and I can hold myself with the best in Australia. You know, I've proven that over the years with my sort of portfolio, but I still won't take more than 30 metres, because what that feeling of missing an animal is way worse than just trying to get an Instagram post. And that's where if we can take anything from it, is if you can say, oh, I can shoot a beer can at 50 metres every single time. You go, grouse. The beer can doesn't eat food and walk. You know what I mean? One step at 50 metres on a deer is a gut shot. You know, and that's just not cool to me on doing that. You know what I mean? Like, and we've seen it. I hear it. There's so many guys where you hear it and then you talk to them and then you go, oh yeah, how many animals? Oh, we shot this massive 6x6 or whatever like that, and you go, man, that's unreal, it's a beautiful trophy. And then you hear someone around a campfire and that, oh yeah, you gut shot 6 other deer. Well, that's not real good, is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't hear those stories, and if we want to continue this sport and lifestyle, we need to start being accountable for ourselves and start to make sure that our decisions are beneficial for everyone and your kids to come up, and that's to kill an animal ethically and as quickly as possible, not gut shoot them and watch them walk around like, you know, all this crap that's going on in South Australia. It's just from uneducated people going in, getting stuff and not learning. That's why I'm an advocate, Brad's an advocate for, and Smurfy and all that stuff, is to try and educate people so this sport can continue for the next generation.
That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, team. If you did have any topics, questions, or you wanted to suggest a guest for Becoming a Bowhunter, you can send me an email at matty@becomingabowhunter.com. If you are enjoying the show or you've enjoyed in particular episodes, please do me a solid and share it around with your friends. If you are not already, please hit the subscribe button, as the more subscribers we get, the higher the podcast gets ranked, and that definitely helps out for showing it to other individuals. If you are not already following me on Instagram, it's at becomingabowhunter.podcast, and on YouTube, it's Becoming a Bowhunter. Get out, team, fling some arrows, get that practice in, and walk those yards in the paddocks until you find those critters. That is it for now, but not the last time that you'll hear from Becoming a Bowhunter.